All right, so we just finished watching Hans Rosling's HIV video, and it was really interesting. Um, he he, he showed a graph that had all the countries in the world and their percentages on HIV, as well as circles that showed the size of the country. And an interesting thing was that every single country that was on this map, or represented every continent in the world. If it wasn't just one country in the continent, it was filling up most of the area, and that it shows that every country is affected with AIDS, and Africa had the highest percentage of people infected with AIDS, um, but in the average was around 2% for the countries, but that 2% of 100 million people is still a large number of people affected with AIDS, and which is a big problem, which needs to be taken care of.
Talking about Africa as well, that he kind of outlined a part of Africa and showed where assigned all the bubbles to a map to show where they were in the world. And what he illustrated was that there's one part of Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, most in the southern point, that it contains only 4% of the world's entire population, but had half or 50% of all of the people that have or that are infected with HIV, and it was such a high concentration of people in that one area. And he made the comparison that although that the highest concentration is there, it was in only a segment of Africa, not all of Africa itself, and that you can't group all of Africa into one, just uh, one big problem continent, saying that all the HIV, problems are in Africa when they're when within Africa you don't have as many problems in other areas.
Yeah, what I liked is he tried to. I mean, the point of all the stats and everything was to find the common denominator, to find the reason why there were such high rates in some areas, and he showed there was an inconsistency. There was sometimes it was the poor that had higher rates, and sometimes it was the rich that had the higher rates. And so there was the only real common thing he could find was that they had multiple partners, and that his solution is monogamy is the only way that um, the HIV is going to go away. And for a gospel perspective, I think that's exactly what we believe is that through only monogamy that's going to go away. And we can try and cure it all we want, but as we stop having sex with multiple partners, I mean, it'll solve itself.
So I thought the video was very interesting. One thing that I thought particularly that was interesting is it talked about Iran. It talked about um, the differences in why there's HIV there, and says there's not as much as the rest of the world, but there's still a good portion of the population has HIV or AIDS. And it was saying a big cause over there is drug use and prostitution. So again, going with another group member, how he was saying the multiple sexual partners. So that's a big thing. Is if we need to make prostitution illegal and all around the world basically, because that's going to help prevent AIDS. It's a big thing. And then the other thing that I thought was the drug use. People using heroin, especially over inside these Middle Eastern countries, Iran especially, their main HIV problem is with heroin. They're sharing needles. They're going around. They're doing these different drugs. And so for me, I kind of got from the video that the main thing that they could see was the sexual partners. But it's not just sexual partners. There's so many different causes of AIDS right now. There's rape that's going around. There's the different drug uses. There's just the different blood transfusions. Everything that's going around with AIDS, there's so many different causes. We can't just focus on one. We have to do multiple solution to every single problem.
Yep, it's a problem. It'll be fixed eventually. And then the next video we watched is by Michael Pritchard, and I think this was the coolest video we've watched so far. He took a water bottle that he made in his garage, he said, and it's able to filter some nasty, destroyed, disease-infested water, and this is something that's able to help people that are living in areas where they don't have fresh water, running water, that type of stuff. and also areas that are hit with like hurricanes and all those type of things that destroy the water sources that people have and contaminate them. And it's something I see as super useful, even just for us that live, in an area that has running water, that we're pretty much guaranteed, to have safe drinking water. But you never know. Just in case, if something happens, you're able to, to provide for yourself, to have, the one of the necessities of life. This is, water is something we need, and it's so important. And this guy has provided a way that we can get it and safely as well.
So I really like the idea of everything, especially of trying to help the world that doesn't have access to clean drinking water to have that access. But I wonder too, as far as I may be a little cynical in thinking he may be just trying to kind of push his own agenda to sell his product and make more money. But we were what I really wanted to know was he compared how much the UK spends on foreign aid, and he said it's like 12. I think it was 12 billion pounds, and he said it would take $8 billion to solve with a lifesaver bottle. It would take $8 billion to solve the like clean drinking water problem in the world, at least to get to the Millennium Goal. And I thought that was really interesting that he was comparing those numbers, because what I'd really like to see is, because obviously 12 billion pounds is way more than $8 billion, but how much of that foreign aid is actually being used for helping those people gain access to clean drinking water? I just don't really think it's a very fair comparison. And so that makes me think that he might be pushing his own agenda. I mean, I think in all honesty, I really do think he does want other people to have clean drinking water. And I think it's a great idea, especially with the idea of not having to ship in water, but to just ship in lifesaver bottles or filters so that people can find water sources around them and just get clean drinking water that way. So I like that idea, but I just also wonder about his numbers a little bit.
Yeah, I think that product. First thing I thought of was, wow, this guy's gonna be rich. That's a great product. But he compared it to a lot of like water treatment systems. He said you'd run out of zeros trying to establish those in areas that don't have it. And so it'd be really expensive to establish those things. But lifesaver bottles are the better way to go. Is what he was saying, but I'd love to see some more statistics on that, on what after the initial cost of setting up a water treatment system would be good, but what's it going to take to keep running? Same with the lifesaver bottles. Like I'm not sure how much 1,000 liters. Did you say 1,000 liters until you have to replace the cartridge?
6,000 liters.
Yeah. So how much that really is and how long that could last, and to see if it. And in my what I was thinking is that it is better at an emergency response, is when hurricanes come through, to send those in instead of just curing the whole system, the whole water purification problems throughout third world countries. It's more of a emergency response.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing that I kind of got from it is I would like to see it being done as more of a pre-emergency. And so, in different areas, whether it's community centers, wherever it's, whatever, tribal leaders' huts, even in the, remote places, but it's before the emergency happens that they have these access to these bottles. I feel like that's the best thing to do with these bottles. I feel that this isn't really a solution to clean the world's water completely. I think that we should look at more small alternative sources. Like we're saying, the treatment plants around the world, and look more of those avenues, and looked at, I know green algae is a big thing right now that produces energy and also cleans water. And so there's different aspects of that I think we should explore more to get clean water around the world. But on just the emergency hurricane disaster type basis, I would like to see these bottles, but I would like to see them go before. And so before an emergency happens, before the hurricane happens, before those things happens, we get them, because then that's going to save a lot of lives, because the time you have to take, that's, deaths upon deaths. So that's my thought.
Thanks.
We're good.